Congratulations, Europe, you ruined the internet. This is exactly what everyone was afraid of. For those of you who are not aware, there's a big political battle between the actual people and the politicians who have no idea what they're talking about, and it is called the EU Copyright Directive. And there are two parts in particular that are pretty problematic, and those are called Article 11 and Article 13. And unfortunately, just yesterday, it was approved by the European Parliament, which means it's pretty much set in stone at this point, and all the rest of the approval, the countries that have to go through and approve it, have all said, yep, we're gonna approve it, and it's gonna happen in just a couple weeks. So right now, things are not looking great. I did previously make another video going into much more detail about what Article 13 and Article 11 are. I'd highly recommend watching that. I'll put the link to pop out or whatever, so you can click on it. But if you want the very quick version, Article 11 is being nicknamed the link tax, which basically means that anytime a search engine or any service wants to show any kind of preview of what a news article is going to show, including the title, they would have to pay a fee. This would include search results, like in Google News. If they want to show the title or even a tiny snippet of what the article is actually going to be about, that you're actually going to want to click on and know what you're clicking on, you'd have to pay a fee. This would also include services like iMessage or even Steam. You know, when you send a link and it kind of pops up a little preview of what it is, then Apple and Valve, for example, would have to pay fees anytime they do that. Article 13, though, is definitely even worse, and it's being nicknamed the upload filter. And basically, this says that a website is completely and totally liable for all copyrighted content that is being uploaded to it by any people. Right now, how it works under the DMCA, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, says that if someone uploads a user-generated content to a website, that website is not liable and can't be sued for that as long as they go and take it down upon request, which is completely reasonable because it's pretty much impossible to monitor all the content being uploaded or posted on a website. YouTube in particular has 300 hours of video uploaded every single minute. But with this law, if a single person uploads one piece of copyrighted content, which by the way is pretty much literally everything, that website could be sued. So they basically will be forced to create an impossible filter, by the way, that would prevent any and all copyrighted material from being uploaded to the website, or else they would be sued. And they would even be liable if it somehow gets past the filter and the copyright holder reports it, hey, you want to take that down, they'll still have to take it down, and then they could also be sued because they somehow missed it. And we already know how bad the YouTube Content ID system is. There's so many false positives, it obviously does not catch everything. So if even a multi-billion-dollar company like Google, which is arguably the most technologically advanced company in the world when it comes to creating these algorithms and machine learning, if they can't even do it, there is literally no way that this is going to happen reasonably. There's still a lot more reasons why this is possibly the stupidest implementation of a law ever, and again, I go into more detail about that in my other video. For example, how this was already tested in Germany and completely failed and they revoked it, and now they're trying to do it to the whole EU. It's just nonsense. But unfortunately, like I said, there's basically no hope of it being not passed at this point. It was already passed by the European Parliament, which was kind of like the final vote, and it went through several votes before that, all of which were approved. Now the final step is, I believe it has to go through what is called the European Council, and then that is basically where ministers from each country in the EU will vote on it, but all those countries have said, yeah, we're gonna approve it, so it's basically set in stone at this point. So basically, in just a couple of weeks, it should be approved, and then it will be entered in the official journal of the European Union, and then countries will have 2 years to actually transpose it or enter it into their own laws. So basically every country in the EU will have this as their own laws. It's not just gonna be a blanket law, which basically means that even if the EU is possibly disbanded or whatever, then each individual country would then have to go and revoke that law themselves, from my understanding at least. Now, how this will affect things in real life is going to depend on how strictly it's enforced by the courts. And of course, we know that the copyright holder companies like the music industry are going to push and try to make sure this is so strictly enforced that it just becomes ridiculous. Supposedly, the politicians in their infinite genius decided, you know what, we'll solve this problem by specifically excluding things like memes from the law, without realizing that, yeah, how are you going to exclude them if the companies still can't manually look through everything? They're going to have to use some sort of computer algorithm to use this filter, and there is no way a computer algorithm is going to be able to distinguish between fair use or what is a meme and any other type of copyrighted content. It just can't be done. So this is most likely going to result in some sort of copyright filter of some kind, and depending on how strictly it's enforced by the government is going to depend on how strictly this filter is going to have to act. It might be super duper sensitive. Anything that even resembles it, they're going to have to remove automatically, shoot first, ask questions later, because they would get sued if they let anything through. I think as a worst case scenario, websites that rely on user-generated content like Reddit and YouTube and even Facebook, where people upload anything, they're gonna have to heavily restrict who can upload content, possibly even just disabling uploading content by default. And then the only way to upload would be if you like verify your identity and be approved specifically to upload content, and then they'd probably make you liable. This is gonna be really bad. And with YouTube, I wouldn't be surprised if they even further heavily restrict who can join the partner program, which allows you to monetize content. They might even restrict it to only be a handful of people who can monetize or even upload content at all. I mean, that sounds really scary and absurd, and why would they ever do that? But who knows? Maybe they'll be forced to do that for EU users specifically, and then US users or people who are anywhere else in the world can just sign up and do whatever they want. And obviously these laws do just apply to the European Union, but the problem is that a lot of these companies like Google, Facebook, they all have presences in the European Union, so they technically would still have to abide by the laws, or else they could be sued in European court. And because this is basically an impossible task, it might end up being that these companies just end up, you know what, we're just gonna block access to the European Union, or we're gonna have to create an extra sensitive filter, and instead of maybe blocking it from being uploaded, we'll just block it all from being shown in the EU. So yeah, only time's gonna tell. I think this is actually pretty much gonna be as bad as people are worrying about, at least to some degree. It might not end the internet completely, but I think it will ruin things for a lot of people. It's going to certainly change the landscape of the internet. I think it's gonna be a lot harder to upload content that is even original, because if it even resembles copyrighted content, then you could have it completely shut down, not even at the request of the copyright holder. It could be the website itself that says, you know what, nope, we don't want to risk this. See ya. So this is not good. And unfortunately, I wish I could say, yeah, write your congressman, write your parliament members or whatever, but at this point, it's done and over with, and it's probably just gonna be screwed. So I guess in conclusion, I just want to say thank you, Europe. You screwed us all.